And now, joining me to discuss the NFL, beach pits, and more, famed sports agent Lee Steinberg, journalist Will Swaim, and sports fanatic Nazar will be along in just a moment, too. So welcome, gentlemen. Does either the NFL or LA need each other?
Well, I don't know about need, but that gets to be established, I would argue, voluntarily and privately. And the problem of what we call political leadership or political will is that it always implies some sort of public obligation, taxpayer obligation specifically. And so LA is now saying, this is going to be great. We're going to build the stadium. The NFL will come, and it won't cost anybody anything. And they've already talked about, I think, buried down in most of the stories that I've seen, a $300 million bond, about, I guess, 25%, maybe 33% of the cost, about a third or a quarter percent of the cost of building the thing. And it's going to be guaranteed. That this bond will be guaranteed out of the general revenues, which of course are already problematic. And without getting too far into the weeds, LA's got an unresolved, unfunded pension problem with its cops and firefighters, which are paid out of the general fund, which would be backing this massive stadium. Economists who are very, very smart people agree on very little, but they agree on this, that there is really no economic benefit to building a stadium. There's just not. There's a thing called, and you're far smarter than I am on this, so I'll give it to you in a second, I promise. But there is really economic substitution in California. That is the idea that people have limited income.
If you don't go to the football game, you're going to go to Disneyland or something.
So this is going to take money out of somebody else's pocket. It's not going to generate new income necessarily.
Well, let's talk about fire pits. You know, that's Southern California. Fire pits up and down the coast. In Newport Beach, some of the folks that live there now are complaining there's too much smoke, too much riffraff, whatever, and they've been wanting to ban these pits, and now they've got a huge ally, the AQMD.
Right.
The Air Quality Management District says this is polluting and that they may close all the pits everywhere.
Here's what's fortunate about this particular showdown with the AQMD, that they may have met their match in the Coastal Commission, which has argued, and I think correctly on this, that there's actually there's a claim on public access. You cannot limit public access, and part of the public access is being allowed to light fires down on the beach.
I'm beginning to think the Coastal Commission now might be might be waffling on this a little now.
They may. And if they do, shame on them. Because the fact is that, tradition, custom, habit, habitual use really are significant factors to take into consideration. It's not strictly a kind of a property rights issue, although I'll come to that. And there is a tradition in Southern California, up and down, I mean, in California in general, of the campfire.
If we're not going to be able to, have a kegger tailgate at a NFL football game, let's at least do it by a beach pit,
well, wait a second. I grew up in Los Angeles in the 1950s. And they allowed us to burn trash openly in incinerators.
Sure.
So that's the way trash
That was called the good old days.
It went up in the air. There were days we couldn't go to school because the air quality was so horrific. I love beach pits, but if they're saying there's a real threat to air quality in it, we couldn't go to school because we wheezed so bad.
Yeah, that lasted until my childhood in the 70s, and I totally remember that, and 3 cheers for the AQMD for clearing up the basin. I got it. But this is very, very different. This is a few millionaires who live in very, very wealthy houses saying they don't want the poor, the middle class, to come down and light fires because it offends them personally. And frankly, I think the key here is you bought a house knowing what was there. Unless you moved in before the Juanino or Gabrielino Indians, you knew what was there. There were fire pits. And now to complain about it after you've bought in, I think, is radically unfair.
I was kind of surprised, David, that the AQMD jumped on board on this. I smell a deal. I smell some kind of deal that Newport Beach is going to be doing something to please, the AQMD here.
The deal is with you folks and your hermetically sealed Newport Coast community and all you rich folks who this is a way to keep the people they don't want in the parks out, the homeless people out. Get the AQMD involved. Say, let's get rid of beach. These.
You point to me, Mr. Malibu. Okay, well, thanks a lot. Anyway, good show, guys. You can watch this show and past shows by going to pbssocal.org and clicking on SoCal Insider. My guests have been Lee Steinberg, Will Swaim, and the finger-pointing David Nazar. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again on SoCal Insider.